Annually, on the 11th hour of the 11th day of the 11th month, Canadians take time to honor the soldiers that have sacrificed their lives for the safety of the nation. Their accomplishments in World War I, World War II, and the Korean War have helped maintain global peace and have helped shape Canada as we know it today. From 1914 to 1918, the First World War took place, in which more than 650,000 of our brave soldiers participated in this war. But over 60,000 died, and 172,000 were terribly wounded. Their contributions and sacrifices demonstrated the efficiency of the Canadian military and earned us a separate signature on the Treaty of Versailles, which was the first step towards recognition as an independent country rather than a British colony. War struck again in 1939, this time taking shape as the Second World War. The horrendous war took the lives of hundreds of millions. Canadians, alongside their allies, took on the dangerous mission to defend the land from the Axis powers. More than 1.1 million Canadians fought in this war, and more than 40,000 of them died. The Second World War also gave an opportunity for many minority groups, such as color, women, and the indigenous community, to participate and serve their country. The Canadian Women Army Corps was created during the Second World War, but it was dismantled after the war ended, and this trend of recruiting women, then disbanded, continued throughout the Cold War and the Korean War. But overall, these war recruitment opened up more opportunities for women, and their job prospects become more diverse. The war also gave more opportunities to people of color. In the beginning stages of the First World War, the black community faced discrimination and opposition from joining the military. However, as the war prolonged, reinforcements were desperately needed, and up to 1,300 black Canadians volunteered in the Canadian Expeditionary Force, allowing them a chance to serve their country. They were not the only minority group allowed a chance to contribute in the war, as many Chinese, Japanese, Sikh soldiers also fought for Canada. These minority groups were involved in peacekeeping missions and battles, and their many sacrifices were incredibly important towards bringing an end to the war. As always, the Indigenous community was highly influential to Canada's history and well-being. In the First World War, more than 4,000 Indigenous men enlisted and moved on to take on many leadership roles amongst their communities. Nevertheless, it is important to note that Canadian government did not treat these people as equals post-war, despite their sacrifices and contributions. The Canadian military's contributions have shaped our country into what it is today. It is important that we Canadians take the time to honor their sacrifices that have allowed us to live in peace.
Even though it's been almost 80 years since the greatest battle in history ended, World War II is still looked back on so students, teachers, and historians can recognize the many advancements, victories, and sacrifices made for peace. But for the Canadians and other allies to achieve success, there were also many failures. Perhaps one of the most significant was the Dieppe raid, a failed invasion that highlights the darkest days of World War II. It all started just 8 decades and a couple months ago. The Allies were developing the plans to execute a mass invasion across the Central Powers territory. However, by 1942, the Allies were not ready yet, fearing that their armies, artillery, and planning were not ready due to their lack of experience. So instead, British senior naval officer Louis Mountbatten planned and ordered a small invasion across the Dieppe coastal port in France to test their combat skills and ultimately prepare the Allies for more important battles to come. The Canadian Armed Forces Lieutenant General Harry Crerar supported this so-called practice invasion and gave his blessing to use the 2nd Canadian Division, who were already located in the UK. It would be the Canadian Army's first war encounter since the failed defense of Hong Kong. Back in Canada, citizens were thrilled that the Canadians were being trusted with this mission, as plans of attack and defense were often handled by the British, US, French, and Soviets. Politicians quickly recognized the nationalism and pride that was instilled in Canadians for the coming invasion and were determined to maintain that sense of joy and belief as doubt about the Allies' success was increasing during that period of conflict. That's why before the raid even began, journalists for the British Combined Operations Headquarters produced articles that would inform readers of the raid's success, which would be released no matter the battle's outcome. Soon enough, the day of the invasion had arrived. On August 19, 1942, 6,000 soldiers, along with pilots and sailors, set their sights on the Nazi-controlled coastline. This included almost 5,000 of Canadian nationality ready to take back Dieppe. However, what was supposed to be a piece of cake, as said by the Canadian General J.H. Roberts, would become one of the biggest tragedies in Canadian history. The fight resulted in over 900 Canadian casualties, with over 1,000 taken prisoner, and thanks to pre-planned propaganda, Canadian citizens were celebrated a non-existing victory instead of mourning the many losses. Many families were not made aware of their relatives' death, resulting in years of suffering caused by lack of closure. Ultimately, the mistakes of the raid helped teach the Allies of conflict's true difficulty and need for course correction. Each loss, each fallback in this raid, would help the Allies in future battles that would prove successful, like D-Day. Today, while we can't go back in time to prevent the great loss at Dieppe, we can still honor and commemorate every Canadian soldier who gave up their welfare and lives for this country and the world.
Au cours des années, de plus en plus de personnes qui ont survécu aux grandes guerres décédées, prenant leur expérience et histoire avec eux. Ceci inclut beaucoup de vétérans, citoyens et même chefs importants, tels que la feu reine Élisabeth II. La jeune reine avait seulement 13 ans quand la Deuxième Guerre mondiale a commencé. Mais, malgré son âge, elle a contribué activement à la guerre pour inspirer les autres et faire tout ce qu'elle peut pour aider. Au début de la guerre, Reine Élisabeth II a présenté sa première parole avec sa sœur Margaret, qui était un message encourageux sur BBC Heures d'enfants pour consoler les enfants qui ont quitté la Grande-Bretagne pour s'évader du bombardement des villes, soulever la morale publique et convaincre les États-Unis d'aider avec la guerre.
Before I finish, I can truthfully say to you all that we children at home are full of cheerfulness and courage. We are trying to do all we can to help our gallant sailors, soldiers and airmen. And we are trying too to bear our own share of the danger and sadness of war. We know, every one of us, that in the end all will be well. For God will care for us and give us victory and peace. And when peace comes, remember, it will be for us, the children of today, to make the world of tomorrow a better and happier place.
Sa parole a accompli toutes ces choses et la jeune reine est devenue adorée par l'œil public. Plus tard, elle était photographiée pour faire du jardinage pour nourriture pour les soldats de son jardin au château Windsor en tant que membre du campagne creuse pour victoire. Au début de 1945, Reine Élisabeth, qui avait 19 ans, est devenue la première femme de la famille royale à devenir un membre en service actif des forces armées britanniques. Elle a subi un entraînement de mécanicien qui a duré 6 semaines en Aldershot, Surrey, où elle a appris comment démonter, réparer et reconstruire des moteurs et remplacer les pneus. Elle a aussi appris comment conduire chaque véhicule qu'elle a travaillé avec, qui inclut les jeeps, camions et ambulances. Environ 5 mois après qu'elle est devenue membre des forces armées britanniques, elle est montée du grade de 2e sous-officier au commandant junior. Bien que les parents de la reine Élisabeth étaient résistants au début, il était très fier d'elle et de toutes ses réalisations militaires. Quant au traitement royal, la reine adolescente était conduite au sauvetage du château Windsor chaque nuit et au lieu de manger avec les autres recrues, elle mangeait ses dîners souvent dans les messes d'officiers. Reine Élisabeth II était encore dans les services territoriaux auxiliaires quand l'Allemagne est rendue le 8 mai 1945. Et a continué de servir jusqu'au rendir du Japon près du fin d'année. Cette année, nous présenterons nos respects à la reine Élisabeth II, un monarque qui a dirigé par exemple tout au long de sa vie influente, a enseigné à ses enfants comment conduire et était la dernière chef d'État à avoir servi pendant la guerre.
There is no war without loss, sacrifice, and tragedy. However, these horrors were suffered by our fellow citizens as well as an immeasurable amount of people around the world so that we could enjoy peace, freedom, and prosperity.
Annually, on the 11th hour of the 11th day of the 11th month, people all over the world take a moment to honor those who served and continue to serve. So please join us in this solemn reflection during the playing of the last post and our minute of silence. They were young, as we are young. They served, giving freely of themselves. To them we pledge, amid the winds of time, to carry their torch and never forget. We will remember them.
Ils étaient jeunes comme nous. Ils ont servi, donnant généreusement d'eux-mêmes. Nous leur promettons, en dépit du temps qui passe, de porter le flambeau et de ne jamais oublier. Nous nous souviendrons d'eux.
Lest we forget.